Okay, so we move on to the next, panel session begins. The next three are going to be panel sessions. The first one is a pretty interesting session, and we put together a very nice topic, which is new technologies in aerospace and defense. We have a message from Srimati J. Manjula, who's the DS and Director General Electronics and Communication Systems, ECS DRDO. She was unable to make it, but she's kind of given us a message to read, so I'm going to read it on behalf of Mrs. J. Manjula. I am delighted to note that India Electronics and Semiconductor Association is organizing the 4th edition of DEFtronics 2017, 2 days conference and exhibition with the theme Accelerating Self-Reliance in Aerospace Defense and Internal Security. The key highlights of the conference as brought out in the brochure are appealing, and I'm sure it will benefit the scientific community working on defense and aerospace electronics in India. Due to my prior official and personal commitments, I'm unable to attend the conference. I'm sure the conference leads to fruitful deliberations, interactions, and there will be a lot more to take home for the delegates from the conference. I wholeheartedly wish DEFtronics 2017 a grand success. So with that, we have a very distinguished set of panelists here. Requesting Professor Navakant Bhatt, Chairperson, Center for Nanoscience and Engineering, SENSE IISc, to come on stage. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Navakant. We have Srinivas Rao, Scientist H, Project Director, PGAD DRDO. Please come on stage, sir. Yatin Kumar from GM Engineering TEDS. Hi, Yatin. Good to see you. Yeah. Tara Power. And Subbalakshmi Krishnamurthy, Scientist and Deputy Director, Capability Building Program Office, ISRO. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much for coming. Please. So, Navakant, all over to you. We'd like to have a keynote address, a short one, and then you have 45 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Mickey, and thank you, IESA, for inviting me here and hosting this panel. Dr. Tessie Thomas could not be here, so we are 4 of us. So what I suggest is that each one of these panelists can take 10 minutes and present their viewpoints, and maybe we'll have some interaction with the audience towards the end, right? So this is a very important topic, as you can well understand, new technologies in aerospace and defense in the context of electronics. Just the other day, there was a news report, you might have seen that, where it indicated that government is contemplating for all defense personnel, the phones to be given only India-made phones, right? So we are now not only talking about defense electronics, but also the commercial electronics to be used by government officials which are made in India. So in this context, it's very important that we sort of look out and see what are the upcoming technologies so that we start working on those technologies upfront and not get left behind, right? So that we become the leaders in creating products from these new technologies, right? So that is the context of this panel session. So I first invite Srinivas Rao, who is Scientist H and Project Director, PGAD DRDO, to present his viewpoints.
Thank you, sir, and to the distinguished panel over here, members of the ESA, participants, fellow colleagues. Today, he said in the context of electronics, but I look at it in the context of aerospace and defense. So let me focus first as initiate on the subject of aerospace. Now you take any aerospace vehicle, sure madam will agree, that 50% of the aerospace vehicle cost goes onto the control, guidance and navigation. And the 50% goes into the other hardware and material inputs into the system. And if you are designing this as a new system or in the advanced systems, you always look for better reliability, longer duration of operation, more accuracy. That's what even my predecessor, Dr. Narayan Murthy, also presented about the high accuracies navigation systems. So if you are looking at the future of these areas, the huge scope and potential lies on development of these systems. Now again, 50% of these costs of these navigation, control and guidance goes on the software. Whether it develop a 6-DOF algorithm, whether I do a complete mission space control software, the complete dynamics of motion in this regard, the margin of errors that can happen on this, the control mechanisms that can happen, and improvement on the flight path. Now, if you further look at it, if you just look at an aircraft, the way aircraft today runs more than 20 hours non-stop and lands even if without a pilot just being there in presence. So the amount of opportunity that is going on in these areas that has come up is what I throw upon as an open in the panel discussion. Further continuation we do as we go about in this panel. The second point I want to look up to this panel to open up is also, as we are developing, people are talking about mobiles, people are speaking about the volumes of electronic systems that we are producing. We also look at volumes of handling these e-waste. Every electronic product that we are developing today has got a life not more than 3 to 4 years. That means the ecology that is being developed, building it out, the ecosystem that we are building it out is also becoming a negative trend on the system, and how to manage and recycle the system back into the utility is also one of the future. The next generation has to really look at it if we have to survive in the system. So with this, I just open up the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas Rao. I mean, you made a very important point, actually 2 points. One is the fact that electronics is all pervasive. In fact, the white paper that Department of Electronics, now Ministry of Electronics, which had brought out, had called electronics as a meta-technology, which means, every manufacturing sector that you can think about, electronics value addition is substantial, right? A high-end automobile has almost 50% of its cost due to electronics, right? And the other very important, pertinent point, which oftentimes gets lost, is the e-waste management, which is extremely important, in this context. Now I call upon Shubhalakshmi Krishnamurthy, who is Scientist and Deputy Director, Capacity Building Program Office in ISRO, to present her viewpoints.
Can I have the presentation material? Respected Chair, respected dignitaries and delegates, good morning to all of you. I'll be presenting on the technologies that are being developed by ISRO and the technologies that are being offered by ISRO to industry. So, I'll start the presentation with the missions that we have handled in the year 2017. So in 2017, within 8 months, we had 6 missions. And in the year 2016, we had totally 10 missions. So to meet the growing demands and requirements of the nation, we'll be having more launches, more satellites, more launch vehicles in the future. It is going to be of the order of 12 to 14 launches per year. So ISRO has understood that to keep pace with this technology requirements of launches, we need the support of industry. So ISRO has set up the new program office called the Capacity Building Program Office in ISRO headquarters. Amongst other things, this office will handle outsourcing, industry interface, technology incubation centers, technology transfers, and things like that. So, I would like to touch upon what is the relevance of technology in ISRO. Technology and ISRO are like the two sides of a coin. You all will agree. So, whether it is launch vehicles or spacecrafts or space applications or space infrastructure, we are working on the cutting edge of technology. Coming to satellites, we have remote sensing satellites, communication satellites, navigation satellites, planetary missions, scientific missions, etc. Without the adequate technology, ISRO cannot embark upon missions like mission to the Sun, to the Venus, Moon, and Mars. Now coming to debris management. This is the topic which is not usually talked about. Many people are not aware of it. ISRO not only has to make satellite launch vehicles, launch them and control them in space. We have to maintain these national assets in space. Space debris consists of objects flying around in zero gravity environment, which can collide with the active life spacecrafts and cause damage. Space debris consists of the spent stages of satellite, that heat shields and dead satellites, satellite parts. So the impact of this can cause damage to the satellites and put an end to their life. So all global space agencies are working on debris management and mitigation techniques. So mitigation comes from threat detection and surveillance. So we need ground-based, all-weather, day and night operating radars, optical radars consisting of sophisticated cameras and mobile and telescopes and mobile object tracking radars, or we can prevent by shielding the satellite from high velocity impact. So once the threat is detected, we have to decide, we have to find out what is the size of the object, by what velocity it is traveling, what is the direction in which it is traveling, how much time it will take to reach the satellite. All this we have to judge and then decide on passivating them or maneuvering the satellite to avoid getting hit by these. So this is also a current critical technology that we have to work on. Now coming to technology to industries. ISRO has transferred over 300 technologies to the industry over the years. This consists of a wide variety of systems like electronic systems, computer systems, software, polymers, chemicals, materials, optical instruments, mechanical equipments, ground support equipments related to broadcasting, satellite communication, meteorology and all. In the year 2016, there were 13 technologies that were transferred to the industry. These are some of the technologies, I have listed them. All this can be had from ISRO website. These are, you can see the wide spectrum of industries, wide spectrum of technologies that has gone into the industries. They are right from RF communication, electro-optical software, and whatnot, IP cores. So many things have been transferred. Now coming to some of the products that have been delivered by industry to ISRO. Here also, we have a wide spectrum of products that are coming out from industry. That is satellite subsystems consisting of power converters, hybrid microcircuits, pressure transducers, RF packages, QPSK demodulators, ground test equipments, software for testing payloads, solar array simulators, batteries, and so on. I would like to touch upon some of the newly developed technologies which have been done with the help of industry. That is shipbound terminal, optical imaging detector array, a finite element analysis software, lithium-ion batteries, NAVIC receivers, as told by our keynote speaker, rubidium atomic clock, and electric propulsion. These are some of the technologies, not the exhaustive list of technologies. Now coming to the shipbound terminal, ISTRAC designed and developed a 4.6 meter shipbound antenna terminal consisting of 3-axis antenna mount motion simulator, then servo control systems, RF electronics. It was integrated in the ship Manjusha, Sagar Manjusha ship hired from NIOT, and it was realized with the participation of Indian industries like Bharat Electronics and other industries, and validated. This is the photograph of the integrated SBT antenna on Bay of Bengal. It is tracking the PSLV C-38 launch vehicle. Now, there were many design challenges in the system. All these challenges were overcome, and it was successfully validated by carrying out seed trial. So this is one example of industry cooperation in a unique project. This is a unique project. Now coming to the optical imaging detector array, ISRO has developed a frame transfer CCD, and this CCD has been used for hyperspectral imaging. So under the Uchatar Avishkar Yojana of MHRD, we are now developing a wide area field of view CMOS image sensor jointly with IIT and a Hyderabad-based industry. You can see the photograph of the chip on board. Now, VSSC has developed a finite element analysis software tool called FEAST. This is for applications in mechanical, aerospace, and civil engineering domains. This is a cost-effective substitute for finite element analysis, and it is in par with the proprietary structural analysis softwares developed by MNCs. So this software works on multiple platforms and multiple operating systems, and this marketing licenses were awarded to many agencies outside the ISRO. I request all the academic institutions, R&D organizations, and the industry to visit this website and make use of this software. And based on your feedback, we are releasing updates every 6 months. Now coming to lithium-ion cells. See, satellites, especially communication satellites, have a life of more than 15 years in orbit. So we need the lithium-ion cells to operate for 15 years in the extreme hostile environment of space. But ISRO has successfully developed 100 ampere hour lithium-ion cells to meet the increased power demands of the communication satellites weighing 4-ton and 6-ton class, which has to be in orbit for more than 15 years, and this has been successfully flown. This technology can be tuned for societal applications like electric vehicles. Already, the job is on. We are trying to get this technology transferred to Indian industries, and Niti Aayog is collaborating for that. Now, due to paucity of time, I'm not able to talk about all the technologies, but I would like to touch upon some technologies which are in the pipeline to industries. So, as you know, solar cell production plant is vital for all the solar panels and solar arrays. This is going to be coming from industry, and small satellites have to be made entirely by industry under the training and supervision of ISRO. And we have semiconductor laboratory in Chandigarh with a fab, state-of-the-art fab is there. This fab access will be thrown to industries and startups soon. And PSLV rocket will be productionized through industry. And MEMS transducers, these are the requirement of the hour. So all MEMS transducers also will be productionized through industries. And laser gyroscopes, very critical technology, very complex technology. So laser gyroscopes and ceramic servo accelerators, these are required in launch vehicles and satellites. These are also in the pipeline to be sent to industry. And left ventricle assist device. This is a spin-off from the R&D of ISRO. This is a medical aid, and this device is going to be productionized through a Gujarat-based industry. So this is also a nation-building, a nation's requirement which ISRO is supporting. So I request all industries, academic institutions and R&D organizations to visit our website, www.isro.gov.in. You'll get all the e-procurement and tenders, technology transfers, and all the information from this website. And I also request all the industry to join hands with ISRO in nation building. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for giving a wide canvas of technologies pursued at ISRO, independently and also in collaboration with industry and academia. And as we all know, in ISRO, the technologies developed by ISRO is like, jewel in the crown for everybody who is working in the technology arena in India. Almost every month we have a satellite launch now these days, and all countries are coming and getting their satellites launched from ISRO, right? So this is really something that we should look forward and really replicate in every domain. So after the two strategic sectors, viewpoints from DRDO and ISRO, I now call upon, Yatan Kumar Mishra, who is a General Manager Engineering, Tata Power SED, to present his viewpoint. Perhaps it's an industrial viewpoint.
Thanks, Chairman. Good morning. First, let me introduce what we do. I mean, usually the moment we hear about, say, Tata Power, we think it's something to do with the electrical energy and all. So ours is a division which only deals with defense electronics and defense systems. Can you go to the next one? Yeah. So while, okay. So this is overview of the entire company. We are division of Tata Power. We are in this industry, defense industry, for last 44 years now. And we have been building mostly systems for, the systems start from launchers to guns to EW systems to air defense systems to modernization of airfield infrastructure and the recent ATACS gun, which you would have heard about. So we are basically a systems and engineering company and not just a strategic electronics company. So that is what we first wanted to explain to you. Yeah, next one. This is our history. We can go to the next one. Sorry. Okay. This is the entire, we call it as with IQ, which is called VDIQ, although. So validation we have kept first, validation, design, and quality. And if you look at the entire spectrum, we actually deal with subsystems to the system level. This I will skip. Why I wanted to explain to you that we have actually developed a fully integrated management system where we are able to produce not just small subsystems, but we look at the entire systems like launchers or the newer programs which are coming, and I'll talk about it at the next. And we have almost all accreditations which are required for aerospace and defense, which is more or less nowadays mandatory. So actually, if you look at the defense industry, it has a long gestation period, and you have to start interacting, starting from the doctrine to the actual systems. And we do at every level, we do that. And especially in realizing such systems, we found that there are core subsystems which still have to be imported. And we tried to figure out which all areas the industry should focus on in building the system. And possibly I would like the other industry, indigenous industry, to come out with alternatives for those core areas, and which possibly Madam talked about. Maybe we can leverage those where we are still dependent on foreign partners. We work with almost all DRDO labs in India. This is some of the production infrastructure in Bangalore. And the testing, as you know, like for any defense system, testing plays the major, it's for the validation part. And we have almost every lab which is required for testing for our ESS to EMI/MC. And I can proudly say that we are possibly the only industry in India we have this kind of facility for defense systems. If you look at our business areas, mostly in artillery and armor, right now our ATACS gun is firing in Pokhran. It's undergoing trials. And I'm proud to announce that we have built the system from scratch. So almost every component of this system is built by us. Obviously, the barrel is from Bharat Forge. Then we are into launches. We have a variety of launches we have developed over period, starting from Agni 5 launcher to Akash launchers to multi-barrel rocket launchers. Akash, many versions of Akash. Then we are into EW systems. We are executing integrated electronic warfare system for Indian Army. We are into optronics, and in fact, we are also supplying optronic products to Andhra Police. Other than defense, we are also working with MHA on their requirements. So, okay, coming back to the challenges which normally we face in the industry. If you see, the technical requirement formulation happens almost 6, 7, in some cases 10 years before. And the RFP takes that much time in defense. By the time the technology has already changed. And what happens is the acceptance criteria is also formulated much earlier. So even if your technology has changed, the industry is crippled with like going with the older one. And that is where our DNA comes in. What we suggest is you formulate your requirements in such a way that there is a scope for putting in new technology at subsystem level. And we provide that platform. And that is where possibly we are succeeding in most of the markets in defense. And generally we have tried to figure out what are the value addition we do for the end user and not just developing some system. And for that, over a period of time, we have focused on the system engineering approach. I mean, it is a well-known approach, although, but we have religiously followed this kind of approach. And what we did is we did extreme left shift. I mean, many people would have heard of this term, where you start involving each and every stakeholder from the initial stage itself. And we also started doing platform strategy. I mean, so far, all the systems in defense, if you look at, they follow the pipeline strategy of development. And there is hardly any scope of changing anything. And that is where we started doing this platform strategy for development. And what it does is we provide the platform. And we actually do combine the producers to the consumers. It is similar to, you can take the platform of, say, e-commerce. Similar to that strategy, we started doing that. And we provided that infrastructure or that ecosystem where the end user's requirement are met by the original developers, okay? And we provide that bridge. Okay. So bridging that technological gap between latest stable technology, I mean, as you know, like defense cannot just take the latest technology if it is not stable enough, okay? So latest stable technology, the practical implementation, and the user needs. And we, so far, have been focusing on SWAP. I mean, everybody thinks of SWAP, size, weight, and power. We focused on SWAP-C, where cost is also an important factor. Okay. And rest, if you visualize any system, what we found is that there is no systematic approach when we start or envision a bigger system, that the subsystems which you are thinking of, what is the technology readiness level for that? So we started focusing on each subsystem, what could be the TRL, and which TRL we should go ahead. So for example, if we are building a bigger system, and the subsystem, which is still in nascent stage, but that you require maybe after 2 years, better focus on newer technology for those systems. And that is how we started building that system. And obviously, the underlying part is the open architecture, which we kept advocating, and nowadays, it's almost like acceptable fact that whichever system you build, it has to be based on open architecture. Some of the current technological things which we are working on, which is nothing new, but we have started working on the software-defined systems. It is similar to software-defined radio, which we talk about, or software-defined networks nowadays we talk about. So we started working on software-defined systems or subsystems. Okay. Others like smart subsystem, smart is a badly used word nowadays. But what we started doing is for each subsystem which you develop, there should be some learning involved in that. In the sense, it should be doing some fault analysis, it should be doing some fault resolution inside, so that it becomes like a self-healing system. And then other things are like system level modularity. So far we were talking about just subsystem level modularity. What we started pushing was like system level modularity, and possibly universal launcher is one of them. Mr. Rao knows that. Yes. Other is intelligent navigation. I mean, I was listening to other speakers and they were talking about Navic and other things. We also work on intelligent navigation, which is required for armed forces. And this is for navigation where your satellite signals are not present. Okay, so we were trying to do marrying satellite signal based positioning as well as dead reckoning system kind of systems. This I've already talked about, and nowadays, I think the next session or after that, there is a session on cyber security and secure systems. We have started working on something called high assurance testing systems, which is required for, I mean, nowadays you can't have, say, air-gapped or airtight systems. You will have other systems like coming from China or anywhere. So those systems will be present in your ecosystem. And finally, you have to ensure that your system is still secure enough. And for that, we have started working on that high assuring testing systems. And obviously, IoT is a thing. What we are doing is, in case of IoT, is we are using those concepts which can be applied to defense domain. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra, and it was a good presentation on the kind of things Tata's is involved. In fact, today it was an eye-opener for me when I was talking to him that Tata's is also involved big time in defense equipment, right? So what I will do is I will have a very brief presentation on the kind of technologies that we are working on at Center for Nanoscience and Engineering at IISc. If we can have that presentation up, please. and after that, we will have the session open for Q&A. So, we always talk about India missing the bus of microelectronics, right? So with the vision that we should not miss the bus of nanoelectronics and nanoscience and engineering, nanotechnology in general, way back in 2000, early 2000, there was a consultative meeting at the level of Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India to set up infrastructure and research facility, high-end research facility to enable research and technology development in nanoscience, nanotechnology, and nanoengineering. So that is how this whole program started. And, we have covered a very long distance. And in the year 2010, a new department was established in the Indian Institute of Science. It's called Center for Nanoscience and Engineering. And 2 years ago, the Prime Minister visited and formally dedicated this facility as a national facility to the country. So what we have here is a National Nanofabrication Center, which has been benchmarked against the best in the world, which facilitates R&D in the area of any area of nanoscience and engineering, not just silicon. Any kind of material, any kind of application is possible over there. And there is also a micro and nano characterization facility and various other labs, such as packaging lab. And unless you package a device, you will not be able to field test the device, right? And you also need to build systems around that. So there is also a system engineering facility and a lot of thematic labs. There's a lab for gas sensors, there's a lab for photonics, neuroelectronics, and so on and so forth, right? And one of the very, very important thrusts in this center in the last 4 years, since its inception, has been not just do R&D and publish papers, but go beyond and, patent the technology and also create startups. Work with industry, right from defining the project and execution and translating the technology, right? So the focus has been to create the startups which are based on deep science and technology in the area of nanoscience and engineering. So in the context of strategic electronics, these are some of the focus areas right now in our center. The director RCI, Dr. Murthy, talked about not having gallium nitride foundry in the country. And we have been addressing this problem. We have been working at it in the last 7 years or so. Now we have end-to-end technology, as I will show you in the next slide. That is one of the major thrusts in our center. Gallium nitride-based electronics, not just power electronics, RF electronics, and also UV sensors and things like that based on gallium nitride. Electronics beyond silicon, electronics based on 2D materials such as graphene and transition metal dichalcogenides, such as essentially flexible, lightweight electronics, which is very important again in strategic application. There's a lot of work that goes on in that direction. Photonics, specifically silicon photonics, which can augment silicon microelectronics and VLSI kind of chips and create new application and new kinds of capabilities, right? And healthcare, perhaps it's not very relevant to this audience, but still, DRDO has a lot of, medical related laboratories, and we have a lot of collaboration with those laboratories as well. Energy devices, renewable energies, and energy harvesting, that is also a very big thrust. And application of nanotechnology and nano devices and other applications, such as agriculture, food processing, and environmental monitoring applications, right? So I'll just give you 2-3 examples on what has been achieved and where are we in this technologies. Gallium nitride is really, emerging and tomorrow's technology, right? It's going beyond silicon and gallium arsenide. So we have been able to incubate this whole technology in this center, starting from materials. We are one of the few centers in the world having the capability to grow very high quality gallium nitride on silicon substrate. Typically, gallium nitride is grown on silicon carbide or sapphire, which are very expensive substrate, right? So we can grow it on silicon 111 substrate, for instance. And we have taken it to the next step, really do a high electron mobility transistor, and also package this device and eventually create a system. Because what sells at the end of the day is system, not a single device or a single chip. This is, for example, a DC to DC converter which was created. So with this success, for the last couple of years, we have been working on a very detailed project report. This was actually, we were invited to prepare this detailed project report by Dr. V.K. Saraswat, who is member of Niti Aayog. And it has gone through multiple consultative meetings it has gone through an approval from the Empowered Committee, which has been set up by the Government of India to incubate, semiconductor foundries in the country. We have not been able to do very well in silicon, but gallium nitride, we are not very far behind compared to the rest of the world. So the idea is that we want to set up a commercial foundry, right? Not a PSU, but a commercial foundry so that it can compete with the best in the world, right? So that is the intent, and the project is in a very advanced stage, and we hope that it will come through very soon. In a year's time, I hope we should have this going off the ground. The other, spin-off from this gallium nitride technology that we have been doing beyond electronics is things like UV detectors, which have extremely important application in defense, for instance, right? And we have been able to develop these UV detectors, again, in this center using these materials. This is, for example, one of the first UV detectors that has been developed, at 275 nanometer range, which is not possible with silicon, for instance. This is where you need gallium nitride, right? And, this is another very important technology that we are seeding. Silicon photonics, right? The idea is that, photonics is not done on silicon today, right? But you need to do that so that you can exploit all advantage of silicon microfabrication technology today, right? So we are actually creating all the optical components on silicon substrate so that you would be eventually able to build a multi-core processors with optical interconnects, right? That is one vector. The other vector is also optical transceivers done on silicon photonics for long-haul communication, which is also extremely important, right? So we are also addressing these problems, and there are multiple projects running in collaboration with some of the DRDO labs, as well as funded by some other funding agencies as well. The other important area I want to bring up, which has oftentimes been neglected, is the lasers, right? There are a lot of equipment where we use lasers and we build equipment, right? Going from a mundane application as the metal cutting industries where lasers are required to very high-end application as lasers in warfare, right? But almost all lasers today are imported, right? So we have a very, very focused program in our center to develop very high-power lasers, right? In any wavelength, any frequency that you want. Typically, lasers are restricted, high-power lasers are restricted below 1.5 micrometer, because that is where you have this RBM and other technologies. What we are doing is that using nonlinear optics and Raman laser technology, we are able to create lasers at any wavelength, right? Sort of a supercontinuum laser, high-power laser, right? So this is a very, very important technologies, and several prototypes have already been built. Again, there is collaboration with multiple agencies, because at the end of the day, as I said, we want to go beyond research and really productize all these devices, right? So these are some of the examples of very high-power lasers which have been created in this center, right? Lasers are, as you know, very important in warfare also going forward, right? Extremely high kilowatt kind of lasers, right? And the other important aspect is sensors, all kinds of sensors, right? MEMS and NEMS sensors. Very, very successful program that we have had, where we have completed this development and also productized these sensors. They are now being used very diverse application. HAL has completely qualified these sensors, and HAL has placed orders for several pressure sensors to be used in their helicopters right now, right? And the other application is Tejas, right? The final qualification tests are ongoing right now. The idea is, again, to use these MEMS-based pressure sensors in a variety of applications, right? For example, in Tejas light combat aircraft itself, you need multiple pressure sensors with different specifications, right? So these are some of the examples. We also have several other programs which are relevant to strategic sectors. For example, a neutron sensor, which is very important for Department of Atomic Energy, right? Which is now completely developed in this nanotechnology center. One other program which was relevant in the context of space was to develop NO2 sensor for leakage monitoring in the launch vehicle in SHAR, right? So this sort of gives you, the opportunities are just, amazing, right? all stakeholders can come together, work together, right from definition of the project and execution all the way to productization. I think we can not only just make in India, but also develop in India and make in India, right? That is what we should aim at. So I think with that, we can open up the session for some Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Navkant. So any questions? Yeah, okay. Can you pass the mic there, please?
Hello. Ma'am, this is specifically for you. You were talking about the rubidium atomic clock. Is it available as a product or is it in the R&D stage? How long is it likely to take as a product? As an equivalent product, probably you'll be searching for the space grade qualification.
I'm not aware of it, how much more time it will take, but we are definitely going to develop this technology for our IRNSS satellites.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question to
Just one more
Lakshmi
question,
madam.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have referred in your presentation that fabs cases, SCL fab is coming up in Chandigarh. So one of the greatest concern in the electronic industry is the fab related issues. So can we have some more clarification on that fab cities coming out in Chandigarh? Will it suffice the India requirement?
Yeah, we have the fab for developing our own chipsets, 0.18 micron technology. We are developing a lot of ASICs and chips for our applications. But there is also a possibility that this will be thrown open for academic institutions and industries. That is under consideration. It will be realized shortly.
Is any plan in the DRDO segment that the fab industry is going to promote or something like that? In fab is the concern. It's more than 50% of cases we are importing. The semiconductor fabrication and everything. So is any plan in India to get this consumption happening in India itself?
Okay, I will do that, but I think it was specifically directed to DRDO. Let him do that.
If you are asking me the fab story for the defense applications, one is if you look at the bulk production of defense. Now, what is the volume which we are producing? Even today, my production is on the limited series. Now, if I commit on the limited series production to the government saying that this is my turnover, can the fab industry accept the return of investment? The investment that the fab industry has to make and the turnover which I am going to give is definitely will not match to your return of investment. So that's why there is what they are saying, they are putting it for their own requirement. Whereas I cannot open up for similarly for own requirement because I've got a clear-cut production mandate. The production agencies will take care of this. There is a policy coming up shortly and you'll see that.
The fab is a dream that we have been working on for a long time. Right now, 180 nanometer CMOS technology is available in SCL, which will be made available to industries also. Parallelly, as Department of Electronics has been trying to incubate so-called mega foundries, they had done their best to really nucleate this. But at the end of the day, we couldn't close the whole financial things that are required because it was something like 70,000 crore project for 2 major foundries. But I understand, this is still ongoing. There are a couple more proposals which are under consideration that I understand. So I think it will happen very soon, right? The exact time is very, very hard to predict. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Navkant. Thanks for those responses. So we request Navkant to kind of hand over mementos to all the panelists, please. request Ashwini to hand a moment to Navkant. Thank you so much, Navkant, for coming.